Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's pick up with Maggie and Negan. They're making their way, and Negan's just kind of like, let's just kind of like stop here. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, you know, who's to say that there's going to be anyone else? But Maggie wants to keep going, even to the point Negan's like, if you, like, gosh, why are you even keeping me alive at this point? And I love that she throws a knife and he's like, shit, and ducks, but she was just killing a walker. And she's like, I ask myself that every day. And I love him being like, shit. I'm like, all that talk you used to have in the past about people like shitting themselves, I guess you shit yourself in that moment, didn't you? But the fact is that, there's that conversation about, you know, when they do show up, it's like, all right, there's a few supplies here. Let's cut our losses and go back to Alexandria, which Maggie's like, are you stupid? This isn't enough food for people. There's a whole entire community we have to fill. He's at the very least, this is something that's better than it. For her, it's like, it's practically nothing. It's like, at the very least, you have people still alive. You still have your people. You still have not Ezekiel, but Herschel. And she's like, you think I don't know that? I do, but the fact is we need something that can keep this group going. Like, but for him, he wants to say, like, at the very least, we'll wait till sundown and then leave. Maggie doesn't say anything at that point because, truth be told, she knows it's like, right, the entire group that they're with now, a lot of them are dead. She doesn't even know if the others are alive, but there's been a lot of death on this road and trip, and it's like, is it even worth it at all? Plus, like Negan said, we got those lunatics chasing after us, which there's not many of them left, but there's enough of them to be an issue because there's not enough of Maggie and them surviving to fight against them, especially considering they are well equipped. They have the advantage when it comes to the terrain and everything like that. And yeah, Daryl's there, but he's still going to be playing as close to the vest, which I don't think I even thought about it at the time, but I guess this is supposed to be a little bit of a parallel of like Daryl's kind of on the inside to this group like Negan was with the Whisperers, or maybe there's a parallel they're trying to draw there. But Negan's kind of packing up stuff and it's like, right, there's no one coming, so we need to go. And she's like, no. She's like, are you... Because it doesn't matter what Negan's going to do. Like, Maggie's already had it up to here with him. She doesn't like him. She can't stand him. He's like, why would I ever trust you? He's like, at the very least, I want to survive just like you, so at least you can trust me in that. Like, I want to do everything I can to ensure that I survive. But also, it's like, well, a lot of that rains hollow after you pretty much left her for dead. So, and then you spoke the one name you should never have spoke, Glenn. On top of that, probably shouldn't even said her son's name by being like Herschel, because you see it almost like her going like, you know, she has this look in her face like, don't ever say my son's name again. I don't ever want to hear his name past your lips. You know, it's just like, she was so disgusted just hearing him even saying Herschel's name. It's like, you, the man who bashed Glenn's head and brains in, have no right to ever even whisper his child's name. You know, so... But it's that thing again of like, yes, Negan's the biggest asshole in the world. Doesn't make him necessarily wrong, but you're not going to side with him because he's been such a tool about everything. He's been a whining, moaning, complaining the entire time. So obviously for Maggie, it is a circumstance of like, she hates him so much, but I think it's also because there is logic behind what he's saying. Like, it is kind of like, we are at a disadvantage. It would be best to leave considering our numbers. We are scattered. We are without a lot of supplies. So it would be in our best interest. To be fair, the reason why they don't have a lot of supplies is because of said Negan. But, you know, so... But it's also like, yeah, Negan is, you know, about self-preservation, but yeah, there are people back in Alexandria he cares about, because he also knows if, like, he kind of comes back alone, and it's probably not going to look too good on him, because it's like, oh, how do we know you didn't just kill everybody while you're, you know, so it's like I said, there's a self-preservation, but it doesn't make what he's saying 100% wrong. Now would probably be the better time to regroup, but it's also like, right, if we don't do this, Alexandria is toast, like, our whole community is toast, because there's just nothing left, so it's like, even if we go back, going back with the little we have means nothing because we get an update on their situation, which I'll get to later. But so obviously it turns into a whole shoving match. But luckily Gabriel and what's his face show up. And so it's like, right, luckily they're good, they found each other, but they don't know where Daryl and Frost are. The others are obviously dead. Alden's holed up in the church. And so, you know, at the end of the day, Gabriel's like, all right, well, we'll wait. And then Maggie's kind of smiling like, yeah. And she looks at Negan. Negan's like, well, my vote didn't matter before. It sure as hell doesn't matter even more so now that there's more of us, because I'm definitely getting outvoted here. But it's the thing of like, because it's like, right, they're a tight-knit group of like, nah, like when we're out here struggling, we don't abandon each other. We're there for each other through and through. So there's that element to it. So of course, like, he's going to come off seeming like even more of an asshole. Like, yes, it's self-preservation, but there is some practicality to what he's saying. Once again, it's just, he screwed the pooch, you know, being who he is on top of everything, but also recent events just made people dislike you and distrust you even more, you know? Maybe if you hadn't been such a tool bag, maybe you would have been able to have, like, Maggie would be at least somewhat more willing to listen to you before, but regardless. Than she is currently now. She would have been more likely before if you not screwed everything over for the past couple episodes, but it is what it is. So kind of, you dug your own grave in that regard. So there's that. Let's focus on Eugene, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess, who are, at the Commonwealth. There's the introduction video, which I'm like, it's still so wild to look at communities that thrive and are full like this, because like you saw like Alexandria being what it was, like, I mean, in particular back in season 5, because back in season 5 was when it was at its strongest, but even then, like, nothing compares to like the Commonwealth. The only thing you'll find in similarity to this is maybe like the Republic, like the glimpses we've gotten peeks at that in World Beyond. It seems like it is the most thriving community out there. We've gotten peaks here and there, but like there's no other community that, like, this is the closest one that comes. I'm sure even it pales in comparison, but it's like, it looks like almost like the real world, because the college was very similar to this in World Beyond, and granted that's all up in smokes because everyone there is dead. But at the end of the day, though, like, this community to be what it is still really impressive. And it's just kind of like the somewhat normalcy of life. You have, like, Ezekiel being an animal keeper, obviously representative of, like, the zookeeper he was beforehand. You have Princess going to be working at, like, a mall or whatever, which she's like, oh my god, if there is a mall here, I'm so excited about that. Eugene was kind of being, like, what was it, like a pool teacher or something like that, so... But Yumiko got a special kind of thing. Like, she gets, I guess because it kind of puts, like, because of her law degree and stuff like that, I guess, like, she's kind of seen more needed in a place that has actual laws and everything. So I guess that kind of puts things in a little more of a, like, she's kind of heralded a little bit differently. So that's why she kind of got more special treatment, which... Luckily, she does end up, you know, getting information, ends up running it to her brother, which we do find out he's a surgeon, and she's like, oh, so are you, which he's like, no, hush, don't bring that up. Because I wonder, did he hide the fact is that he used to be a surgeon or not? The fact is that they're not making him not do anything medical, because being a medic, like anything in the medical field, like obviously you're going to like stand out, but for him, it's like he wanted nothing to do with that. Because, you know, he ends up bringing it up, it's like, yeah, I'm just baking cakes and I'm happy. But he's like, oh, here you are, Yumiko, always kind of just trying to dictate how people live their life. And she's like, no, I'm not trying to do that. He's like, just please don't ruin this for me. I'm happy. Like, this is the happiest I've been in a long time. You should know. She's like, right, I haven't seen you this happy in a while. So, but obviously it is a thing of like, they were already foreshadowing the moment he's like, right, anything's possible here as long as you follow the rules. You know, trying to stick that, end of like, right, you need to follow the rules, you know, but every place like that seems perfect on the top, it's like, yeah, there's some underlying, I mean, even look at the Republic, that comes with a lot of blood and a lot of probably unsavory stuff that I don't know if the general public of the Republic are aware of, like what sacrifices and what tolls are paid just to make sure that their society thrives. But at the end of the day, you can't help but feel like there's probably some darkness there. It's like, there's no way you live in this world without there being some massive, like, there has to be some like price that has to be paid for having such a quaint community. It's just something we've seen time and time and time again in this universe. And I'm like, there's no way there's not some darkness associated with this place. It's too good to be true, and anything in this world too good to be true usually is. So we'll see how that's spanning out. I mean, especially because Eugene, Princess, as well as Ezekiel kind of get up to some shenanigans, as you know, because when Eugene's walking through the streets, he sees like a mother with a baby, and obviously makes him think of Rosita. It makes him think of just everyone that they have waiting for them back in Alexandria. So it's like, yeah, he's even cemented even more in his mind of like, we do need to help. Like, because he even said at the beginning, like, we can't forget our main objective here was to get help, and we can't lose sight of that. So they're trying to do that. So with Stephanie's help, she's willing to like help him try and sneak into the communications, which he's able to get in touch with Rosita, but the signal's just too messed up, and they can't at the time, and obviously that gets cut short, which I love. Princess bonding sometimes. She's like, hey, Mercer, nice seeing you here. And it's just like basically complimenting his body. Because she even threw it out there, was it last episode, complimenting like his body and stuff like that, talking about how, there might have even been episode 2 that she was talking about like how good he looks and stuff like that. It's like, yo, like, and she's just like, oh, so he's like, do you have anything else to say? She's like, and you have beautiful eyelashes. And he just kind of goes, I didn't know whether he just felt awkward about it, but he's like, you're biding time. Like, there's something up here. So, because next thing we know, it's not just Eugene getting arrested. We already see Princess and Ezekiel already kind of locked up as well. But they did break the law, but they're not citizens. So, like, a lot of the same things that would apply to citizens, because it's like, yeah, they have a good lawyer, but it doesn't matter because you don't have the same rights and privileges as a civilian. That's why Stephanie's not getting lumped with you, because she's getting charged separately as a civilian. And then on top of that, though, like, the dude from the video is kind of taking an interest in him. Why? Maybe because it's like, right, regardless of everything, we need more people like you, like people who are from the outside world. And, you know, maybe it's kind of like, not necessarily like, oh, you be perfect for security, but maybe it's more so like, no, you're necessary for something else. There's even like Pamela Milton, because they bring it up like, oh, the Miltons, which I'm wondering, is it kind of supposed to be similar to Alexandria, because we know how that started, like, or at least like by the time Rick and the crew showed up back in season 5, what Alexandria was and who was running it at the time. So maybe it's a similar thing, because the way Tommy was talking about it, like the Miltons were here, like they're like early grade people. Like he was here with like one of the early groups of like finding this place, and slowly but surely it's built out to what it is. So I'm curious to find out who these Miltons are, what they're all about, how this whole thing's going to play out. Because even Stephanie's like, yeah, he can at least lessen the situation you're in, but you guys did break the rules, so you still will pay a price in some shape or form. Now, what that price is going to be, maybe that's going to backlash on Yumiko as well as her brother, which he's like, oh, don't ruin it. It's a moment she's like, yeah, I'd never. I'm like, oh, that's going to, like, either you're going to intentionally have to screw that up, or unintentionally you're going to have to screw something up for your brother. But I'm like, oh, yeah, you probably shouldn't have made that promise. But of course, she didn't know. I mean, because truth be told, they're not meant to stay here. She just wanted to make sure her brother was okay, but also it's like, right, we need to make sure we're in a position where like our group can come here, because I don't know how much of Rosita's like message got through to him, where it's like to Eugene, where it's like, right, we won the war, but Alexandria's in a bad condition. Like it sounds like he didn't catch all of that. Like how much of it he did, probably none of it, but also like how they're starving. So we'll see where things kind of go from that front. That's also interesting, too, because, like, we bounced between so many groups this episode, which I thought was fascinating. Because usually what ends up happening, like, a lot of episodes, you might bounce between, like, usually you only stay with one particular group, but I guess it's because everyone's just so scattered. There's so many stories going on at once. You're probably trying to squeeze a lot into the final season. Maybe there's certain regards in that. But it's like, there's been bouncing between different groups and stuff like that, sure, but I feel like it's never been to this extent before. Like, you literally bounce between 4-ish different groups. I mean, because, like, Alexandria's group and whatnot kind of splits into two between, like, Aaron and them and, like, you know, Judith and Rosita in this. And then, like, well, let's kind of break it down about the Alexandria situation first and foremost. situation in Alexandria is super dire as walkers, like, Jerry happens to go to the bathroom and sees a walker outside. It's like, yeah, they busted through, killed some people, probably not a lot, but luckily, they were able to get the wall back up in time, but it's just a temporary solution. It's like, they don't have all the tools. And even Rosita saying, like, we're going to have to think about, like, if these walls have already been, like, taken down once. So, like, even the repairs we did are just even more of a band-aid than before. So we might even have to think about abandoning it. But for Aaron, it's like, this is our home. So he's like, I'm not willing to leave this place. We're going to still fight for it for as long as we can. Because for him, it's like, right, this is also Gracie's home. And then for him, it's like, this is all they have left to, because if they go back on the road, where else are we going to go? Like, Alexandria is the last standing place for a while. So it's like, where do we go beyond this? And so, especially, it doesn't help that Aaron's kind of also scared because he had that nightmare about him and Gracie being surrounded by every enemy they've ever had. So, like, we see a dude with the W, like the wolves. So I'm assuming some of them are going to be like, there's going to be like a savior amongst them. And the, God, what's his face? The Whisperer. So, like, every enemy, and just kind of like the enemy's knocking at your door and you're just kind of scared. Like, you're in a position where, like, your home is threatened, and it's not just the walkers you have to worry about. It's also like every other enemy. Like, there's a new enemy, there's old enemies that could always come back, and there's new enemies around every corner of just like, especially when Alexandria is in a state that it can't fully fight back either. It's not the powerhouse that it used to be at one point in time. So but while that's all being taken care of, like, Judith is training the kids to fight and stuff like that. Grace is amongst them. And then, like, Judith notices some kids acting like an idiot. I'm like, they're over there like, oh, like with the walker. I'm like, oh God, this universe in totality has shown us time and time again, man, teenagers in this universe suck. Obviously, Judith and Carl are going to be the biggest exceptions. Yes, Carl was like a young kid, like, but he grew up pretty fast, and he didn't become like, he wasn't the fuckhead that he was at one point in time. You can make the argument. Once again, he was still kind of a kid, but it's like, those kids over there, it's like, oh, those are fuckheads. And they're like, oh, what are you doing, you idiot? You know the wall's not safe and you're over there doing that. And Judith had to call him out. I was like, don't make me call Rosita. One of the kids had the nerve to push her. He's like, yeah, that's why your mom abandoned you. She's like, what? Pointed the sword at him. Say it again. I dare you. Luckily, Gracie's the one that, like, got Judith to back down. But he's like, oh, you psycho? I'm like, that girl you're calling a psycho has done a lot more for this community. Like, what have you done? She's been out on the front lines. Like, what have you kids done for me lately? Nothing. I guarantee it. It's like, shut up. Because also at the same time, it's kind of weird to say, but it's like, Judith's a legacy in this, in the sense that, like, right, her dad, her mom, her other mom, Michonne, Carl, it's like, shut up. You could never say anything to Judith because of what her family's done and what she's done. She don't even have to rest on the laurels of her family. Like, she's helped out in her own right. Like, have you guys 100% helped out? Even if you have helped out, it ain't nothing. I'm just like, you little snot-nosed brats. Didn't have the nerve later on to break the wood and stuff like that. I'm like, you are the biggest garbage people because, like, she threatened you and stuff like that. You're like, oh, your insecurity. You got challenged by a little girl, like, made you feel like a punk. It's like, dude. And destroying that, because especially for her, it's like, that's one of the last things she has left to remember Carl. And especially because it's like, that being gone is like, he's being, like, it's like the last thing to hold on to him is gone as well. It's like, and especially because it's like, he's gone. Everybody's gone. It's like, she lost Rick because she thinks he's dead. She lost Carl. She lost her biological mom. She never even got to know Lori. Michonne's gone. So it's like, and even asking Rosita, does it get easier? And Rosita's like, I'd be lying if I told you it does. She ends up opening up the fact is that she lost her father when she was, I forgot when probably like when she was little, or I know she definitely talked about losing her. I think her dad, she might have even lost him before she was born or something like that. I can't remember, but like she said, her mom, she was like, I was about your age when I lost my mom. And, but my mom did everything she could to prepare me just in case, like, if anything, it was always me and her for so long, but she prepared me just in case, like, anything ever happened to her and she know that I'd be okay. And your dad and Carl did the exact same thing. So yeah, they might be gone, but the fact is, you don't need wood to remember them. Like, just from you being here alone, it's because she was scared, like, right, without reminders of them, it's like, what if I end up forgetting them, And so Rosita's like, nah, but I can help you fix it, so that was really nice. So there's that element to it. I was like, man, those kids are going to get what's for. But once again, it's like, man, teenagers in this are just garbage. Teenagers in general are garbage. I'm sorry to any random teenagers that may be listening to this. I'm a curmudgeonly old man about that, because it's just like, once you get older, you look back at when you were a teenager, like, oh, I look back and I was like, like, I don't say the word much, but I legitimately cringe when I think about me as a teenager. I'm like, oh, teenagers are just snot-nosed little brats. I mean, I'm also around teenagers in the sense that, like, my nieces and nephew are teenagers now, and they can be snot-nosed little brats, so... it's just, but it's like, even the apocalypse can't stop teenagers from being assholes. That's the crazy thing about it. But nevertheless, Aaron, Jerry, Lydia, and Carol go to Hilltop to try and get whatever supplies they can. Maybe some of the blacksmithing supplies could help them, whatever's left and survives the fire. And this is their first time being back, and they're just looking at it. It's just like, man, this place is a wreck. They find some of the people that they knew there turned, like, they're people who couldn't escape the fire, who died. I mean, whether they just straight up died there, whether they died because of the fire, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of people they knew, and they had to just, especially, it has to suck for Carol, because it's a reminder of, like, she might not have given, like, Negan the go-ahead on all of that. Like, that was kind of on him. Like, he was meant to strike sooner than he did, but that still does fall back on her. Granted, Negan gets the brunt of that. But at the end of the day, it's like trying to get as many supplies as they can, but lo and behold, who do they run into? Aaron's dream. Dreams in this universe are powerful, because they always happen at interesting times, whether it's like Rick's quote-unquote last episode, that dream sequence, Grace having one in Fear the Walking Dead, what that kind of represented, what that turned out to be, and now Aaron having this dream, and just like, I mean, because even Rosita talked about, oh yeah, I've had a dream lately about Abraham, but she can't figure out what it means. I'm like, dreams are so powerful in this universe. But yeah, they run into like a whisperer, and it's like, is he the last one? Because he's someone that Lydia knows. He's not like the inner circle, so she's like, trust him and just leave it as it is. Like, you don't have to hurt him. But Jerry's reluctant to believe him. Even Carol's like, well, we do have to make sure he's not a threat. Obviously, Aaron's not in the best place mentally, because it's like, right, this is a threat to everything that they know and hold and cherish dear. So, like, of course, like, because the Whisperers were the biggest threat they've ever had to deal with before. So, they've never lost the way they lost with the Whisperers, but it turns out he's not the only one. There were other people there too, but you could see, like, no, it is just him. He didn't want to say anything, because I was like, oh, I thought he had like a family or something. I thought it was more so like, oh, maybe he had a wife and kids or something, and he was trying to protect them. But it's like, no, there's just like other Whisperers. Like, they are not the powerful group that they once were. They're doing all that they can. Like, they're hiding amongst walkers again, just because it's like, right, old habits. And the fact is that it's how they've survived up until now, so they're trying to do the same thing. But the others scatter when one of them tries to attack Aaron, because there's a conversation about, like, well, what do we do with them? Like, Aaron's looking through all their stuff, but it's like, there's definitely more of you. Like, why you expect me to believe you now, even though you lie straight to my face saying you were the only one? Lydia's a little sympathetic, because she's like, right, these people aren't my mom. They were just as scared as my mom as anyone else. But for Aaron, it's like, they were still part of the people attacked. It's like, they're bad. And she's like, well, what about Mary? You believed Mary, and Mary ended up being an ally. R.I.P. Mary, for damn you, Beta. But Beta got what was coming to him, so there's some retribution, justice in some shape or form. Doesn't make it any easier, but regardless, it is a situation of, like, Lydia's a little more like, because these people were like family to her, because even Home Dude was like, his name is Keith, he was like, I fed you, like, when Alpha wouldn't, when she wasn't around, like, I snuck you food in the long winters, because I'm sure that was, like, Alpha, like, punishing Lydia, trying to make her stronger and all that, whatnot, And so, obviously, Aaron and Jerry kind of worked to torture, because Jerry found his wife's thing, and it's like, oh, like, you were there, you burned down, like, you ransacked and burned down our house. So, like, for him, it's like, nah, screw it, you got no sympathy for me. And so they're threatening him like with a walker, like, hey, give us some information or this walker's gonna bite you. And Eren lets him bite some fingers, and it's like, right, got a limited amount of time, help me before, and I might decide to cut your hand off to save you. And so he ends up talking about the fact is that, like, right, I think what set him off was like, what made Eren do that was because he was like, oh, Alpha was right about you. You guys think you're better than the dead, but at least the dead are who they are. At least, you guys try to pretend like you're better just because you're alive. And it's like, why would you make a comment like that to piss him off? Because it's especially you saying that after everything that they've lost, but it was just kind of like he was just caught up in the moment, I guess, and said some stuff he shouldn't have said. Lydia's kind of upset and just won't sit by. Carol's actually the one that saved the dude because she put an arrow in the walker. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to protect everything I love. And she's like, I understand why she's like, when Henry died, I lost myself and just trying to get revenge. And because of that, I hurt so many of the people I cared about. It was a dark path. I have to carry that with me even to now. I don't want you to repeat the same mistake I did, Eren. You do this, I just let him go, because if you go down this path, you're going to be just as lost as I am, and you can be just as consumed by it. So Eren gives him the knife and is like, you can cut your hand off, or I can cut you off. Either way, whatever you want. And even Lydia's like, are you okay at the end of it all? And he's like, yeah. Honestly, he's like, the guy had every right. It's like, after all that he's lost, after all they've lost, I completely understand. Like, you don't have to justify what they did. He's like, honestly, what he did is better than what, like, obviously it'd be worse than, like, Alpha would do so much worse. So, but it's like, right, do you guys believe we've changed it? Like, trust me, we have. And it's like, how do we know? It's like, that person you're looking for, and he references Connie, which is interesting because Magnus was kind of like, yeah, just don't give Kelly false hope. And now it turns out like, oh, Connie's alive. She was hurt, but alive. So we'll see. So it's like, right, but it's like, we got to wait till the next day. So let's wait till, like, because we're about to run out of daylight. Let's wait till tomorrow, and then we'll try and track down Connie. And then as they're leaving, Eren's looking back because they had left him some supplies. And so, I mean, there's plenty of enemies that have turned allies, plenty, obviously, saviors that ended up working alongside the group, but, it's like, will they be as receptive to the Whisperers? Because, once again, saviors did some shit, but the Whisperers did way more damage. So, and he's looking back, kind of like, probably, it's like, right, because even Jerry's like, oh, it's a good thing you didn't kill them after all. I can't remember. I think that was Jerry who made that comment. It was one of them, but I think it was Jerry. But I'm sure there's a look like him looking back, wondering, like, I had a nightmare about this. Did I make the right choice by leaving them alive? Is that going to come back to haunt us? Hopefully it won't. But they're on their last leg, so there's not much they could do. But they have enough that they could probably wrangle up enough walkers for it to be an issue. But I'm like, I don't see them doing that, especially because you got let off easy, got some supplies. So it's like, we'll see. Hopefully they don't try something stupid, but we'll have to wait and see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us. Going forward with all of this, now knowing, like, hey, Connie's out there. Just from the tiny little clip I saw of it, I think we're mainly probably going to see Connie's side of things, but we'll probably, like, obviously, like, Carol's going to go back and tell Kelly and everything. So, like, that's probably going to be it's probably going to be a bounce back and forth to try and find Connie. So, but once again, like, who knows how long ago it was when because that was like a while back. They probably saw Connie. So it's like, is she still alive? We'll have to wait and see. I think I can't remember if he said that was like after Alpha died or not. Because it might be a thing of like, yeah, it might have been a little while ago, so she might not be alive. So Magnus probably going to be like, don't get your hopes up too much, because once again, she didn't want Carol getting Kelly's hopes up too much. So hopefully everything works out in the end. But like I said, I'm interested to see where, especially if we get more insight into what Connie's been through and what she's been up to this entire time, because it's been a while, so we'll have to wait and see. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.